Welcome back to Simply Satisfied. I am your host, Greg, and today I am joined by Terry Whalin, who is a publisher. He has helped countless people, right? Terry, countless people. Um, he has actually a gift for a lot of people, uh, a new book, 10 Publishing Myths. But biggest thing about Terry is he helps people publish their books. He's wrote millions of blogs, like hundreds of millions of blogs, estimated. I'm not sure. I'm not sure the exact number. Terry could probably tell us, but he's in the top 30 content producers with so many blogs, and he's big on writing, and I'm really excited about this talk. Welcome to the show, Terry.
Greg, great to be here with you.
Thank you for being here. Now, before we dive into, this show is all about purpose, right? It's all about you know, fulfillment in life. And you have definitely found your purpose with writing and publishing and all of that. And we can dive into that a little bit, but tell me a little bit about your backstory.
Yeah, I think my backstory begins. It was an English teacher in high school actually that noticed my writing ability and encouraged me to join the high school newspaper. So I did that. Initially, they put me on the sports page, Greg, and you know, I'm kind of interested in sports, but I don't really know much about it. So I had to learn all the terms and all that kind of stuff in order to be able to write sports stories. But ultimately, at my last year in high school, I was the editor of my high school newspaper, and I decided that I should go into journalism. I really liked it. And so I went to Indiana University, which is a top 10 journalism school in the country, studied journalism. But the main thing I did once I got there is I joined the college paper. We were producing a full size newspaper, 6 days a week. There are about 100 of us on the writing staff. I think I rewrote my first story for the college paper about 5 times, and it appeared in the paper. It was like, 2 inches, didn't even have my name on it. So I quickly learned I had a lot to learn while I was there at Indiana. And basically back then I was blowing off my classes. We were writing stories. That's what it was all about, at least for me back then. And I joined a social fraternity, and about halfway through my sophomore year, I was sitting there, and this is in the pre-computer days. So we were sitting at an old Royal typewriter, shoulder to shoulder with other people, and I was trying to write my story. I couldn't get my fingers on the right keys, and I kept muttering to myself. And back then, when you made a mistake, you backed up and X'd out. And so I knew my copy was just going to look terrible for my editor. And I kept muttering to myself, Jesus Christ, Jesus Christ. And this little blonde haired girl that was sitting next to me, she turned to me and she said, "Oh, Terry, don't say that. Because one of these days when you really need Jesus, you'll call out for him and he won't be there." And I thought, what is this? I'm a Christian. I go to church when I'm at home. I read the Bible in church when I'm at home. Greg, I knew nothing about Christianity. She encouraged me to go to this little bookstore a couple blocks off the Indiana campus. They had pretty cards and posters, and maybe I'd find a book that interested me. So I wandered down there a couple days later, and I bought this book called Jesus the Revolutionary. I thought, how in the world could Jesus be a revolutionary? I took that book back to my room. I read that book, and it showed me a different side of Jesus than I'd ever seen before. But about that time, some people invited me to this Jesus people gathering in downtown Bloomington, Indiana. These people were sitting on little scraps of carpets with little candles lit. And I knew from going to that one meeting that those people had something that I didn't have. And so I got a Bible, and I've been going Jesus trail ever since with my life. I changed the direction of my life. My journalism colleagues thought I was sort of crazy because we were all gearing up to be like, big city newspaper reporters, like at the Indianapolis Star or the Chicago Tribune or one of these places. I decided to join Wycliffe Bible Translators, which is what I did. And so left my journalism, went into linguistics for 10 years, lived in Guatemala, Central America, worked among the Southwest Cachiquel people. I actually have a New Testament that's on my shelf that wouldn't have existed if I hadn't have made those kind of choices. But then I wandered back to my writing and started writing for magazines. I went to a writers conference, which is really one of the best things that anybody wants to get into writing, go get to a writers conference somewhere, because you can find that community and sort of get plugged into people that are doing books and magazines and stuff like that. And I was at this writers conference, and this editor and I went out walking, and she said to me, she said, "Terry," she said, "I got a problem." I'm like, "Okay, what's your problem, Kathy?" She said she was an editor at David C. Cook, and they had this mission as a publishing house that they were going to encourage kids to go to the world and to share Jesus with people in the world. And she said, "Terry, I don't have a single book that says that. What kind of ideas do you have?" Because she knew I was like a missionary with Wycliffe Bible Translators. And so I said, back then I was reading books to my kids, so I knew what kinds of things were going on in the book market. That's always important too, to have that kind of background. But I knew that Stephen Lawhead, who writes fantasy, actually wrote kids books under the name Steve Lawhead. And he had these books called Howard Had a Spaceship, Howard Had a Hot Air Balloon, that had real pictures combined with a little cartoon character to show kids, to help them get into the story. And I said to this editor, what if we took a little cartoon character and combined it with our real pictures from around the world to show kids that they could do anything they wanted to, different occupations. And she said, "Oh, that's a good idea. Write that up and send that to me." And so I made a little note. I went home, wrote that up, sent it to her, and we went back and forth a few times. But ultimately, that became my first book, Greg, that was published in 1992, a little children's book I did called "When I Grow Up, I Can Go Anywhere for Jesus." Since then, I've written for more than 50 magazines. I've written more than 60 books. Uh, I've had all kinds of stuff published out there, and just had great opportunity to work in this field. But I do it mostly because I know books change people's lives, because I know firsthand that I read a book that changed my life.
Yeah, that's amazing. So you published your first book in 1992,
I did.
and
did.
you just took off from there.
Well, I took off from there. I mean, in a sense, I was writing books and doing some things. I was still working for magazines. I left Wycliffe and actually worked for Billy Graham for a couple of years. I was associate editor of Decision Magazine back when the office was in Minneapolis, and we were doing 1.8 million copies of the magazine every issue. So it was a pretty incredible place to get to work and learn all that kind of thing. It didn't Most of the people that go to the Billy Graham organization stay there for a long time. I was there for a short time, which is very telling that something went wrong for me, which it did. I didn't have a really great relationship with my boss, and so I left there, and that's really when my freelance life kind of exploded, and I started writing books for all kinds of people, and all kinds of stuff happened from that.
I gotcha. So in what ways, and obviously like you made a career out of it, but in what other ways did writing change your life?
Well, it's changed my life mostly because of all these different people that written. I've written biographies on Billy Graham and Luis Palau and Billy Sunday and Sojourner Truth and Vanetta Flowers, the first African American ever win a gold medal in the Winter Olympics. And I've written a lot of biographies because I read a lot of those when I was a kid, and so those books mean a lot to me. And so I love other people's stories. I've co-authored books with a number of people through the years. Um, I've written how-tos, devotionals, children's books, all kinds of stuff that I've done.
Yeah. Do you think that writing could help anybody and everybody?
Yeah, I do. I think it's a lot more complicated than what people think. Basically anybody with a computer, and we all have computers these days, thinks that they can write a book, but that's not really true. I mean, you've got to learn how to tell a story, um, how to hold people's attention, and I usually encourage people to start in the magazine area, which is almost backwards because they want to write a book, which is something they can hold in their hand and all that kind of thing. Well, but with magazines, you can reach a lot more people than you ever could with a book. I mean, in the publishing world, for example, if you sell 5,000 copies of your book during the lifetime of the book, that's a good number, in the book publishing world. Where in the magazine world, it's very easy to reach, 100,000, 200,000, half a million people with your magazine article. So you can really learn a lot about the whole writing area by writing for magazines. And a lot of people don't even think to do that.
I've never thought to do that. That's a good idea.
And you can always say at the end of your magazine article, author of such and such book or at such and such website. So you can point people where you want them. And, if you write a number of magazine articles on similar topics, they can become chapters in your book. So it's all a matter of looking at the stuff and sort of being strategic, how you write. But by writing for magazines, you learn how to write for a particular audience, how to have a good title, how to have a beginning, a middle, and end, how to have what we call a takeaway, like a single point. The reader goes, "Oh, that's why I'm reading that." You have to put all that kind of stuff into, 12, 1,500 words. And that's a lot easier to do that than to write a 50, 100,000 word book type thing.
Yeah. Yeah, of course. So when did you shift? And maybe you do it all together, but when did you shift from writing to publish, helping others publish?
Yeah, I guess a lot of that happened when I started working for other for publishing companies. So I'm working now at my third publishing company, and I've been there 13 years at Morgan James Publishing. But as a part of that process is really where I've been helping authors get their own books published. And also, it was very eye opening to me because I'd never worked inside a publishing company before. I didn't know how they made their decisions, how they decided to do this book and not that book. It was very, very eye opening for me to learn about that part of the process too.
Yeah. And what are some things that you learned about publishing or even writing too that have helped you not only in those fields, but also in life?
Yeah, I guess what I learned in publishing is that you've got to really zero in on who your target reader is, who you're really writing for. I mean, people like to say my book's for everybody. Well, no book's for everybody, really, Greg. If you think about it, I mean, books are for a particular audience and a particular reader. So, zero in on that type of thing as well. Really, will help you. And I did have a wake up moment for myself with what I was doing in publishing, and I want to make sure I tell you about that. Um, I was running a little literary agency in North Scottsdale, Arizona, and Mark Victor Hansen, the co-author of Chicken Soup for the Soul, invited me. He was having this big event out in Los Angeles called Mega Book Marketing University. And so he invited me out there. I took pitches from people throughout the event, but at that point in my life, I'd written about 50 books for traditional publishers. So publishers were paying me advances. Uh, they were making pretty books. They were in the bookstores, all that kind of thing. But when you write those books, Greg, quarterly or maybe once or twice a year, you'll get a financial statement from the publisher that'll tell you how your book is selling out there. All of my statements that I was getting were in the minus category. And so I wasn't making money, doing this.
Yeah.
And so it's like, boy, I must be doing something wrong, because my books aren't doing good. So as I sat there at this mega book marketing university in 2007, there were 400 people there, and we were all had our big notebooks. We were all listening to the different speakers. And it was almost like during that event, it's almost like I'd been asleep and I woke up because one of the speakers at this event was Jack Canfield, the other co-author on Chicken Soup for the Soul. And Jack is somebody that studies success and has written this book that I have on my shelf here called The Success Principles. And the very first success principle says that I will take 100% responsibility for my own success. Now, those of us that are in publishing, we want somebody else to do it for us, right? We want some editor or some publisher or somebody else to do it for us. And what I realized through that experience is how little I was doing myself to tell people about my book. Sure, I had a terrywhalin.com website, but I wasn't blogging or doing anything else. So that's when I started blogging, and I've been blogging consistently here since 2004, one article every week that I write. And so I've got like 1,700 entries in my blog, which is why they picked me as one of the top content producers. I have a huge volume of stuff that are out there, and it's not that I do anything magical. It's just that I write this little article about publishing once a week.
Yeah.
Out there, there's about 400 people that get my blog on email and stuff like that. But it's something I do consistently, and that's one of the keys, I think, to being successful. And it's also what I learned from the Chicken Soup for the Soul guys, because people forget. I mean, those Chicken Soup for the Soul books were rejected over 150 times before they finally found a publisher.
Wow.
And those guys found a little publisher in Florida to publish the first Chicken Soup for the Soul book. They told their publisher they were going to sell 1 million books in the first year. And their publisher laughed at them. They never sold 1 million copies of anything at that point. They thought that was ridiculous. Well, it took them a year and a half, Greg, to get to their first 1 million books.
Wow.
But the way they did it is they practiced what they call the rule of five. They got up every day and they did 5 things to be telling people about their book. They did a live event, a blog post, a magazine article, a newspaper article, a podcast, something to be telling people. There's lots and lots of things you can do. But the fact that they did it 5 times and over is really what makes it happen. And that's what I wasn't doing back then, and that's what I started doing. And my whole experience of publishing books kind of has turned around since I really started being more active. And that's why I'm active on social media. I have like 1,000 followers on X or Twitter. I have 19,500 connections on LinkedIn. You know, 4,950 Facebook friends. I'm doing all this stuff, and I'm very focused about it. I don't let it consume me. It just takes a short amount of time to do that kind of thing. But doing it over and over is part of the key.
Yeah. And so that wake up moment kind of changed a lot for you, huh?
It did. It did. Open up a lot of doors for me to write books for other people and to just have the kind of opportunities I've had, which have been amazing.
Yeah, that's awesome. So why the myths? Why the publishing myths now?
Yeah, I published 10 publishing myths because I talk to authors all the time about their books and their ambitions and their dreams. And many of those are totally unrealistic. And so, what I was trying to do, because there's so much of the publishing process that's really outside of our control as authors. I mean, I can't make a bookstore buy your book or any of that kind of thing. Um, I can help people know about the fact that your book exists out there. And so I hear these myths all the time from different authors. So I took 10 of them and put them in this book, but I really tried to emphasize the practical nature of what the author can actually do with that myth to do something for themselves to get exposure for their book out there. So every myth has what I call an MBA, a myth buster action, some practical action step that the reader and the writer can really take to do something about that. So, for example, the myth is the first myth is I will make a lot of money with my book. And that's what every author thinks. They think they're going to make a lot of money. Well, you may make some money with your book, but that shouldn't be the primary reason you're doing it. You're doing it to show your authority, to open up speaking opportunities, sell other things to people. I mean, there's all kinds of things, good reasons that you write a book for besides making money. And making money may come as a part of that, but you really have to be wise about how you put your book together, choose the right publisher, all that kind of thing.
Yeah. Okay. What are some of the I'm curious, what are some of the unrealistic goals that authors are like telling you?
Oh, they say that I'm going to be a best-selling author. I'm going to be on the New York Times list. I'm going to be on the Wall Street Journal or the USA Today bestseller list. Well, you may. I sure hope you do. Uh, you know, it's hard to do that going in the front door, really. Particularly a lot of these new authors, they don't have many connections. So how in the world are they going to really be able to do that? Now, if you come in to me at Morgan James and have an email list of 100,000 names or something like that, sure, maybe you could get on the USA Today bestseller list. But for most of us, that's going to be a real stretch for you to do that.
Yeah. Okay. I got you. And so the first myth was I'm gonna like make a lot of money with this. I feel like that's probably one of the biggest ones, right?
That's really one of the biggest ones. And and when I put this book together, Greg, my Alice Kreider, who's an acquisitions editor, came back to me and she said, "Terry, you're missing the 11th myth." I'm like, "Oh, okay, Alice, I'll bite. What's the 11th myth?" She said, "Well, the 11th myth should be that if I send my book to Oprah Winfrey, she'll book me on her show." And I'm like, "Well, yeah, that's a pretty good myth." And so what I decided to do is I decided to write that chapter because and when we designed the book, we designed this to look exactly like the rest of the book, and people can get that myth from me for free if they go to terrylinks.com / 11th myth 11th myth, and then you'll get this free. It'll come to your email box and show you that 11th myth.
Awesome. Awesome. So the 11th myth, but we haven't even dove in on some of the other 10.
Oh, you want to hear about the other 10? Okay, the other 10. Let's
Well,
see.
what are other than the making money one, what's another a really big one?
I think another big one is people think that my publisher will sell and promote my book.
Yep, that's
Well,
probably a
your
big one.
your publisher is going to do that. Don't get me wrong. I mean, at Morgan James, sure, no publisher does enough, but we do more than most publishers. But just think about it. At Morgan James, we publish about 150 books a year. So our interest is really divided, between all those books. And we've been doing this for 20 years. So we have a lot of titles out there. So we're going to promote your book, but it's going to be limited what we're going to do. Where you as the author, if you take 100% responsibility, you're going to be out there telling people about your book. And they've pretty much proven, Greg, that somebody has to hear about your book uh, 7, 10, 20 times before they all of a sudden think, oh, 10 publishing myths. I should buy that book. I should buy that book and read that book. So they have to be exposed to that book over and over and over before they actually decide to buy it. So it's
Yeah.
quite a process to do that. I mean, everybody wonders about why publishers want to know about their social media numbers. And part of the reason they want to know that is because that's part of the exposure that you're giving to your book, talking about the benefits and why somebody should be interested in whatever it is you've written.
Yeah. And you know, the author probably should have like they're going to have more attention to their book than anybody else, right? They're going to have, because they wrote it, right?
They are. They're the ones with the greatest passion. And so you got to take that passion that you have and figure out how to help people learn about your book, like we're doing here on this podcast. I mean, it's great. I love talking about 10 publishing myths because this is going to help people to really be able to move forward and get excited. And one of the things that I've done to besides having the 11th myth is I've made a special offer so that people can get my book for only $10, along with over $200 worth of bonuses. All they have to do is go to publishingoffer.com. And those 200 bonuses, I mean, that's not just blowing smoke. I mean, one of the bonuses, for example, is an audio that I interviewed. One of my friends has sold lots and lots of books to libraries. I mean, people forget there's over 9,000 public libraries in this country. And libraries have money, to buy books. And so this friend figured out he could call libraries, public libraries, and talk to a certain librarian, pitch his book, and they would buy them, and he would send the book out with an invoice. He sold lots and lots of books, just selling them to libraries. But again, taking the initiative, calling these people, telling them about his book, getting the sale, and then sending him the invoice. I mean, a lot of people never think to even do that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, Terry, I have an important question, which is you, you've written a lot of things, right? If I was a beginner writer, which I am, but if I was a beginner writer, what do you think would be the biggest thing for me to become successful?
The biggest thing to be successful is really I tell people you almost have to have the right book at the right time at the right place, and that's a lot of rights that have to kind of line up, and so you have to really a part of it is making the right connection at the end of the day. So that takes work. You have to be connecting with people and telling them about you and listening to them and working with them. So that's part of what I'm doing over on LinkedIn. That's why I have so many connections over there. And I think that's part of the key is to get in the right place at the right time.
Okay. That's probably the best advice I've gotten on writing so far. Now,
The other key that I think with books in particular is um, in the publishing world we have this thing called a book proposal that
okay.
is really at the end of the day it's really your business plan about how you're going to put your book together. Who's your audience? What are you going to do to sell the book? What kind of other books are similar to your book? That kind of thing. And I wrote a book years ago called Book Proposals That Sell 21 Secrets to Speed Your Success. Now, this book has over 150 five-star reviews. I wrote it as a frustrated editor, basically, because I wasn't getting the kind of submissions that I wanted. It's helped a lot of people. They've been able to get advances. They found a publisher. They found a literary agent. All kinds of great things have happened from this. People can get a free ebook version of that book from me. I have the revised edition that we published a couple years ago. All they have to do is go to bookproposals.ws for website, and you could download the full ebook version of that book. Now, why do you think I'd give away that ebook version, Greg?
I have
We
no
give it
idea.
we give it away. We give it away because at Morgan James we've learned that if you get that ebook version from me and start to read that, there is a high probability you're going to turn and buy the print copy of the book. So by giving away the ebook, I lose nothing. Basically, I'm driving print book sales by doing that. And we've proven that over and over. Now, everybody thought when ebooks came out, they were going to take over the world, and print was going to disappear and
Yeah.
all that stuff. Well, that didn't happen. I mean, worldwide, they've pretty much proven that it's 20% ebook and 80% print. So, so we don't have to worry. Our print books are not going to disappear. They're going to be here, and you get my free ebook, and that'll help you because you'll start to figure out what your business plan is and where you're going to go with this rather than just writing some manuscript that you're going to send out all over creation and nobody's going to take.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know that I can't I've tried doing ebooks. I need the print copy in front of me, something to hold on to.
I do too. I'm totally a print guy. I don't read ebooks, even though I sell ebooks. But yeah, it's the way it is.
Yeah, anything like I can, maybe if it's less than like 50 pages an ebook, I can do it. But that's like just a document.
Sure, sure.
um, Now, what fuels your passion for these publishing myths, for your 10 publishing myths? Why are you so passionate about it?
Yeah, I'm passionate about it because of the practical information that I really tried to build into this book. Because, um, like people, I talk to authors all the time, and they'll say, well, my audience is over on Facebook, or my audience is on LinkedIn, or my audience is on YouTube. Well, now those are all good platforms, don't get me wrong, but what people need to remember is that each of those platforms are rented platforms. I mean, I don't control Facebook or LinkedIn or YouTube. As a matter of fact, I could do something goofy over there and get kicked off of there tomorrow and lose whatever connections I had there. So don't build your stuff on a rented platform at the end of the day. You know, each of us control our own newsletter, our own blog, our own website. Build them on things like that you can really keep your hands on, and they won't disappear at the end of.
Yeah. Okay. And that's what fuels you to help those authors is to help them build their platforms.
It does. It does. It helps fuel me to give them some glimmer of an idea that they can actually say, "Oh, yeah, I could do that," and then they go and run with it,
Yeah.
which is really great because over and over I've learned, Greg. There's much in the world that I can't control. I can't make somebody publish with me. I can't make somebody sign my contract. I can't make anybody buy my book here at the end of the day. There's only one person on the planet that I have any control over, and that's me. And so I get up every day and do my part in this process to really help people understand that we live in one of the greatest times in human history. There's tons of opportunity out there, but you have to pitch and make that kind of opportunity happen for you and for your things that you want to do. And so take these ideas from me and just run with it at the end of the day.
Yeah. That's amazing stuff. It's amazing stuff. I mean, to think that there's so many authors out there, right? That probably fall for all of those myths. I know the first one, this book will make me a lot of money. Was one of the reasons I started writing. I was like, "Oh, I'm going to write a book. It's going to make a lot of money." And then actually somebody else was like, "Hey, I don't know about that. Look at actually their advice to me was look at, you ever walk into a bookstore, how many those books have you never touched?" And I'm like, 99% of them or more. Oh, there's a lot of books in the world, but the myths really helped me to kind of be like, okay, this makes sense. It helped in my writing journey, even the advice, even the show. I have days where I don't want to write. I bet you've had days where you didn't want to write. Did you ever have a moment or multiple moments like where you didn't want to write anymore or wanted to quit?
Yeah, I have moments like that all the time. But the key is that I don't let those things get to me. I mean, I get rejected all the time. Still, people say no to me a lot. But one of the keys, I think, when you hear that, is what is going to be your response when you hear that no. Does that get you moving in a new direction, or does that stop you cold in that process? Uh, Mark Victor Hansen and Jack Canfield, I mean, look at all the rejection they had all those times. And what they did with each other is they would look at each other and they would say one word, and the word was next. Okay, it's like, oh, this didn't work out. Where's the next opportunity? So they didn't stop. They just kept kept going until they finally found the little publisher in Florida that would publish those first Chicken Soup for the Soul books, and now they're some of the most prolific in the English language. I mean, it's amazing. But that's what we have to do as writers. If we get rejected, I get rejected a lot, and if we don't feel like writing, we still have to write. You still have to tell those. There's lots of stories out there to be told, and maybe it's not a book that you're working on. Maybe you're working on a little devotional or a short little piece for some magazine or something. It doesn't have to be a book. It can be something simple that but just start, and that'll get you going so that you can do other stuff.
Yeah. Now I have another, it's kind of more on the personal side of away from your book, away from uh the publishing side, but how do you deal with writer's block?
Yeah, yeah,
Or is that a myth?
well, some people would say it's a myth, but when you have writer's block, and I think it's a true thing that you get blocked up and you really can't do anything. What I encourage people to do at that point is to change it up. Go out and walk around the block, get a book, read a book, watch a movie, do something different, and then try writing something else, that's outside of that genre. Like, for example, there's this little devotional that you can get called The Upper Room that churches give it out and stuff like that. It's a quarterly, and that little magazine has a circulation of about 6 million people get that thing. And it's like 200 to 300 words, Greg. So, so I've written a couple of devotions that have gotten in that magazine. It's pretty
Really?
cool. It's pretty cool to get your stuff out there to all those people. Yeah, they pay you the grand sum, I think, of $20 that you get for writing that little devotional. But look at the impact, that
Yeah.
you can have for your words, and I think that's great.
Yeah. I used to read The Upper Room. I used to get it.
It's a fine little devotional. The editor encouraged me to write for them, and so I did go back and I wrote 4 different devotions.
Okay.
You can actually send them online now. They have an online way that you can submit these things, and so I submitted my 4 devotions. 3 of them got rejected. One of them they actually took, and it was funny to me, the one they took, because at the time I was writing a Bible story about on Isaiah, the book of Isaiah, and for the Passion translation for Broad Street that I was doing. And in Isaiah 20, there's a verse that many people have forgotten. It's God told Isaiah to take off all his clothes, including his sandals, and walk around naked for 3 years as a as kind of a symbol for the Jewish people. And Isaiah did that. He listened to God and did that. And so I used that kind of circumstance to write a devotion about, hey, are we really listening to God, and how are we trying to do what God's asked us to do? And that's the devotion that they published, which I thought was kind of funny.
That is kind of funny. um Now, Terry, as we start to, wrap up the show, I could ask you a million questions about writing, but uh we don't have time for all of my questions. I mean, we got plenty of time. There's going to be a lot of off camera questions, off recording questions. Probably I'm going to send you emails nonstop and be like, "Hey, I'm trying to write this, whatever, blah 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 blah." But we'll get to that as we start to wrap up the show. I have one more question, and there's a theme to the show. I don't know if you know the theme to the show,
Simply satisfied.
but my question goes back into the past, and it's pretty big. And that question is, what is one thing you wish you would have known, or you wish you would have learned earlier in life?
One thing I wish I'd known earlier in life. I guess the one thing I wish I'd known earlier in life is the true opportunity that's out there in the publishing world. Um, I Greg, I've had the opportunity to go to New York, sit with some major publishers, major literary agents, and whenever I meet these people, they're always asking me, uh, "Okay, Terry, where's the next best-selling book? Where's the next best-selling author?" And sure, when you approach them naively, you don't know these people, you send them something, you get ghosted, you think, oh, these people didn't even read my stuff, they don't care about me. Well, the reality is something really different. They're all reading their email, they're reading their physical mail, they're listening to their phone calls and voicemail because they're looking for that diamond in the rough that they can actually publish and get out there into the world. So I think that's something I wish I'd known years ago, that there is true opportunity, whether they come back and tell me that or not. So my response is to just keep at it day in and day out, and keep pitching and keep telling people about the opportunity that's out there, because I think it's huge.
Wow, that's really good. I mean, just limitless opportunity, right?
It is, but we all have to do something. It just doesn't come to us. Knowledge is great. It's great learning about all this stuff, but the rubber meets the road when you actually do something. And that's why all have to keep our fingers on the keyboard and keep doing this stuff.
Keep pumping away.
That's
Now,
right.
Terry, do you have anything else you want to tell the audience?
Well, I just want to remind them that they can get that book from me for only $10, along with the over $200 worth of bonuses. All they have to do is go to publishingoffer.com, and I'd love to send it to them. And I really try to be accessible to people, Greg, too, which is kind of unusual. I mean, I have my personal email address right in my profile on Twitter there, because I want people to be able to get a hold of me and ask me questions. And that's part of the way I'm wired to really help folks out there to be able to succeed in this business.
Awesome. Awesome. And then for everybody listening, I'm going to put all of Terry's information in the show notes of this show as well when it gets released. You guys will be able to find all of his stuff, all of his social medias, his website. All of that will be in the show notes below. So check that out as well. Terry, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Greg. I appreciate the opportunity.
Of course. And, this has been an eye-opening call for me. Eye-opening show for me where I can get back into my writing. I can know exactly how to break free from the myths of publishing, because that's been one of the biggest kind of scares for me, is like, okay, how do I go about publishing when I actually do write something? So this has been awesome. Thank you so much, Terry, again. For everybody listening, always remember, keep smiling, keep striving, and keep writing. Whether it's a journal, whether it's a book, whether it's your dissertation, always keep writing.